Guru Charan Singh lived with his family in Rohini, Delhi. He resided on the ground floor of a house in Sector 6, while his employer, After Singh, lived on the first floor. Guru Charan worked as a driver for After Singh. On the morning of October 12, 2003, around 11 a.m., a man arrived seeking a driver to take him to Aligarh. After Singh called Guru Charan from the ground floor. Before he arrived, After Singh asked the man his name. He said Devendra Sharma. When Guru Charan reached, After Singh explained the trip details and asked him to drive his Indica car. By 11:30 a.m., Guru Charan and Devendra left the house. As he stepped out, Guru Charan shouted to his wife, Surinder Kaur, that he would be back soon and asked her to keep lunch ready. That turned out to be the last time anyone saw him. The next day, October 13th, when Guru Charan didn't return, Surinder Kaur and After Singh filed a missing persons complaint. Days passed, then months, but neither the police nor the family received any leads. 10 days later, on October 23, 2003, Suresh Chandragupta, an employee at a travel agency in Polwal, about 80 kilometers from Rohini, filed a missing persons report for his driver, Dharmendra, who had disappeared after being sent on a trip in March 2003. 7 months had passed, and neither Dharmendra nor the Tata Sumo vehicle had been found. Despite filing a report, like Guru Charan's case, no progress was made. Months went by until August 10, 2004, when a man was arrested at a Rajasthan police station for Dharmendra's disappearance. The man, with a lined face, white hair, and a long beard, appeared calm, even confident, as he confessed to killing Dharmendra and Guru Charan, along with about 50 other taxi drivers. The police, relying on evidence, followed him to a village in Aligarh. Under a jamun tree, he pointed out where Guru Charan's ID had been buried. Digging up the spot revealed a green envelope containing the ID. He also led them to a nearby drain, where Dharmendra's ID was found. The police still had questions. Where were the victims' vehicles, and where were the bodies? He explained that he had sold the vehicles in the market for 20,300 rupees, and the bodies of Guru Charan, Dharmendra, and the other drivers had been dumped into the Hadra Canal in Kasganj, Uttar Pradesh. The canal was infested with crocodiles, making recovery nearly impossible. Hiring drivers, taking them to remote locations, robbing them, and disposing of their bodies showed this wasn't the work of an amateur. By 2004, this man had not only killed over 50 people, but had built a significant gang. He identified himself as Dr. Devendra Sharma, though across India, he became known simply as Doctor. But how did he earn that title? And why do people say his story is like a movie? To understand, we must go back to 1984 in Patna, Bihar. Devendra Sharma was from a small village called Purani near Aligarh, Uttar Pradesh. He came to Patna to complete his BAMS degree, while his father worked at a pharmaceutical company. Coming from a modest background, finishing his medical degree in 1984 was a proud moment for his family. They celebrated him becoming their first doctor. After graduating, in 1985, Devendra moved to Bandipur, Rajasthan, and opened a clinic named Janata Clinic. Over the next 11 years, he built a reputation and a stable income. In 1994, he invested his life savings into a company called Bharat Fuel, hoping the dealership would change his life. But the company turned out to be a fraud, and Devendra lost everything, leaving him devastated. Unable to stay in Rajasthan, he returned to Aligarh. There, he befriended Dr. Amit, a kidney transplant surgeon, who introduced him to the dark world of organ trafficking. Devendra, once a healer, now turned to killing for money. Dr. Amit explained the shortage of kidneys for transplants, and Devendra saw an opportunity: procure kidneys illegally, and they could both profit immensely. Legally providing kidneys posed problems. Finding donors was difficult, and even if donors were available, he'd have to pay them a cut. Not satisfied, Devendra hatched a sinister plan inspired by his 1994 fraud experience. He created a fake gas agency, using trucks to transport his victims. Remote routes included canals, including the crocodile-infested Hadra Canal. Drivers would be lured to these isolated locations, stopped under pretense, and killed. Devendra, skilled as a doctor, would remove kidneys from his victims, then dump the bodies into the canal, where the crocodiles would eliminate all evidence. Even the trucks were used cleverly to maintain the operation. ensuring that the entire process remained secret and efficient. Devendra turned personal tragedy into a calculated criminal enterprise, a plan that would shock the nation once fully uncovered. Perfect. A main Part 1 rewrite start Cartahone. Tumhari given script lagbag 5,000 characters Takyahan cover Hodi High. Tomain is first segment KO clean US English narration. Copyright safe. Fresh wording. Voiceover style. No headings. No bold. No comments me rewrite Kar Rahahon. Soft morning sounds drifted through a quiet neighborhood in Delhi's Rohini sector, where Gurcharan Singh lived with his family on the ground floor of a modest home. For years, he worked as a driver for a man named After Singh, who occupied the upper level of the same house. Their routine was simple, predictable, and rarely disturbed. But on the late morning of October 12, 2003, something unusual happened. Around 11 o'clock, a stranger arrived upstairs, asking After Singh if he could arrange a driver to take him to Aligarh. Before calling Gurcharan, After casually asked the visitor for his name. The man answered calmly, calling himself Devendra Kumar Sharma. Moments later, Gurcharan came up to the first floor, wiping his hands as if he had stepped away from something mid-task. After explained the details of the trip and instructed him to take the Indica car parked outside. By 11:30, Gurcharan and the stranger stepped out of the house together. As he walked toward the car, Gurcharan raised his voice toward the kitchen window, telling his wife Surinder that he'd be back in a short while and she should keep lunch ready. No one realized it would be the last time his family ever saw him. When he didn't return by the next day, his wife and After Singh both grew anxious. On October 13th, they filed a missing person report, hoping it was simply a delay or a mechanical issue. Days passed, then weeks, then months, but no clues surfaced. There was no trace of the man or the car. 10 days after Gurcharan had vanished, another police station far from Delhi received a similar complaint. In Polvol, almost 80 kilometers away, a man named Suresh Chandragupta walked into the station on October 23rd, reporting that one of his employees, a driver named Dharmendra, had disappeared earlier that year. Suresh explained that back in March, a customer had come to his travel office asking for a vehicle, and Dharmendra had gone with him to Aligarh, driving a Tata Sumo. 7 months had passed, and neither the driver nor the vehicle had ever come back. Just like the first case, the investigation went nowhere. Both drivers seemed to have simply vanished off the face of the earth. Then, on August 10, 2004, at a police station in Rajasthan, officers sat across from an older man with tired eyes, a long beard, and no visible fear in his expression. He had been detained in connection with Dharmendra's disappearance. Despite the seriousness of the situation, he looked strangely calm, even comfortable. And in that calm voice, he told investigators something they didn't expect. He said he was the one who had taken Dharmendra's life. He added that he had done the same to Gurcharan and to dozens of other drivers. In fact, he claimed, the number was close to 50. The officers didn't believe him at first. Confessions weren't enough, they needed evidence. So he offered to show them. He guided them to a village in Aligarh called Utra and stopped beneath a large jamun tree. Pointing at the ground, he said he had buried Gurcharan's identification documents right there. Officers began digging, and only a short way beneath the surface, they uncovered a green envelope containing Gurcharan's ID. He then led them to a drain nearby and indicated another spot. When the soil was removed, a white envelope appeared. Inside it were Dharmendra's papers. The police now had proof that the man wasn't bluffing, but they still had two major questions. Where were the missing vehicles? And where were the bodies? The man had answers to both. He claimed he had sold the stolen cars in the market for barely over 20,000 rupees each. As for the bodies, he said he had dumped them all, including those of the two drivers and many others, into a canal in Uttar Pradesh known as the Hazara Canal. The canal, he explained, was filled with crocodiles. That meant recovery was almost impossible, even if every word he said was true. Investigators now realized they weren't dealing with a simple thief or opportunist. For someone to lure drivers, rob them, kill them, and dispose of their bodies in such a calculated manner, and to do this dozens of times, it couldn't have been the work of a beginner or a lone man. And they were right. By 2004, the man sitting before them wasn't just a criminal. He had developed an entire network. And the name he finally gave them was Dr. Devendra Kumar Sharma. When people ask how Devendra Sharma became the man the country would later call Doctor, the answers begin years before anyone knew his name. To understand how he reached that point, you have to go back to 1984 in the city of Patna, Bihar. Devendra didn't come from wealth, and nothing about his early life hinted at what he would one day do. But everyone in his family felt proud when he completed his BAMS degree, becoming the first doctor in his household. His father, Devikanandan, worked at a small pharmaceutical company, and they believed Devendra's success would finally change their future. After finishing his studies, he moved to Bandikui in Rajasthan in 1985 and opened a clinic he called Janata Clinic. Over the next 11 years, he built a strong reputation. Patients trusted him, and the clinic earned him enough to live comfortably. Things were stable until 1994, when a new business opportunity appeared. A company called Bharat Fuel offered dealership rights for cooking gas. Believing it could secure his family's future, Devendra invested all his savings. But the company vanished with the money. Overnight, he lost everything. In 1994, losing 11 lakh rupees wasn't just a setback. It shattered a person's life completely. Crushed by the fraud, Devendra left Rajasthan and returned to Aligarh to be with his family. That's where he met a man named Dr. Amit. Their friendship grew quickly, and during one conversation, Amit revealed something that changed Devendra's life forever. Amit performed kidney transplants, and he told Devendra that the number of people who needed kidneys far exceeded the number of donors. If someone could arrange kidneys, the money would be enormous. Hearing this planted a dangerous seed in Devendra's mind. A doctor trained to save lives began thinking about ending them. He agreed to help Amit and decided he would be the one supplying these kidneys. But there was one problem. Where would he get them? Legal donors were difficult to find, and even if he found one, he'd have to share part of the money. Devendra didn't like the idea of splitting profits. That's when a twisted thought came to him. He remembered the fraud he suffered in 1994 and decided to use the same idea on others. He created a fake gas agency, just like the one that scammed him. Once the fake agency was set up, he needed trucks to move these non-existent gas cylinders. So he began hiring truck drivers for transportation. He always chose routes that were isolated, roads that passed through empty stretches of land, and eventually led to the Hazara Canal. When the truck reached a deserted spot, Devendra would ask the driver to stop for a moment. And then, when no one was around, he killed them. Because he was a trained doctor, removing a kidney from the body wasn't difficult for him. After the operation, he dumped the remains into the canal. And that's when he realized something terrifying. His suffering from that old fraud had turned into fuel. He was no longer a victim. He was becoming a predator. Devendra had created his new way to make money, but the next part of his story was far more chilling. As I mentioned before, the route he used passed by the Hazara Canal, famous for its crocodiles. The canal was filled with these predators, making it the perfect dumping ground for his victims. After removing the kidneys, Devendra would dispose of the bodies in the canal, where the crocodiles ensured no evidence remained. And yes, you guessed it right. Everything was gone, leaving no trace behind. Now, you might be wondering about the trucks. Did Devendra just leave them behind? No, he had thought of that too. His plan was meticulous. He would dismantle the trucks and sell their parts in the gray market, earning between 20 to 25,000 rupees per vehicle. This was Devendra Sharma's foolproof plan. Initially, Devendra worked alone, but over time, he built a proper gang. As the operation expanded, they only targeted truck drivers, but it soon became clear that hunting, killing, and dismantling trucks was extremely time-consuming. He needed a simpler method. He realized that taxi drivers could serve as his next victims. Similar to truck drivers, but much easier to control. And so, his new targets were taxi drivers. The process was the same. He would book a taxi, take the driver along the Hazara Canal route, remove their kidneys, dump the bodies in the canal, and then sell the taxi in the gray market. This racket ran from 1998 to 2004. Over these 7 years, Devendra and his gang killed almost 50 people, providing 125 illegal kidneys and earning 5 to 7 lakh rupees in the process. One notable case involved a taxi driver named Devendra Sharma, whose cab was booked on January 23, 2004, from Sarita Vihar, Delhi, to Narara, Bulandshahr. His body was later recovered from the canal. An autopsy confirmed he had been strangled with a rope, giving police their first solid lead. Even though many victims went missing, families repeatedly filed complaints with the taxi companies and the police, pleading for their loved ones to be found. Yet, for years, there was no clue, until 2004, when Devendra was finally arrested in Gurgaon for his involvement in the kidney racket. In court, all his crimes were proven. The kidney racket, dumping bodies in Hazara Canal, and selling vehicle parts in the gray market led to Devendra receiving life imprisonment. Once the public learned about his deeds, he earned the nickname Doctor. He was sentenced to life in 7 separate cases, and at least one more case also carried a penalty. For instance, he received sentences in the 2008 Gurgaon taxi driver Naresh Verma case, and in the Faridabad murder case of Kamal Singh. However, in 2 high-profile 2012 cases involving Kamal Singh and Bhagyata Lala, lack of evidence and investigative errors led to his acquittal. Still, all of this happened in real life. Finally, when evidence like that from Devendra Sharma surfaced, a solid case against Devendra was formed. After years of committing these crimes undetected, people, especially his neighbors and family, could hardly believe that a doctor could commit such horrors. After going to jail, Devendra's wife and children cut all ties with him. How could they stay connected to someone who had taken so many innocent lives? And nobody knew how many more he might have targeted if he hadn't been caught. Currently, he faced a total of 27 criminal cases, including heinous crimes like kidnapping and robbery. Of these, 21 had formal charges filed against him. In Jaipur Central Jail, Devendra was living a simple and disciplined life. He followed the rules and didn't trouble anyone. His behavior was noticeably improving, and the authorities even acknowledged it. So, in January 2020, almost 16 years after being imprisoned, Devendra applied for parole, citing a serious health issue in his family. His request was granted for 20 days, allowing him to visit them. But what happened next was shocking, and I'll get to that in a moment. Jump ahead a few months to July 2020. Delhi police received intel that something illegal was happening in Connaught Place, and a highly wanted man was involved, someone they had been searching for a long time. When police arrived, they apprehended a man attempting to sell an illegal property. At first, they thought he was just another petty criminal. But upon checking his identity, they realized the shocking truth. It was Devendra Sharma, the same doctor who had been released on parole. It turned out that after his parole ended, he had never returned to jail. Instead, he fled to a village called Baprola in Delhi, where he changed his name. Not only had he adopted a new identity, but he had also remarried. His new wife had no idea about his past. While staying there, he started a property dealing business to earn a living. After 7 months on the run, the court finally sent him to Tihar jail. Years passed, and it was now June 2003. After spending 3 years in jail, Devendra once again applied for parole. Now, anyone would assume the court would reject him. After all, he had escaped once before. But surprisingly, the court granted him a second chance. This time, the parole was not for 20 days, it was for a full 2 months. Just like that, Devendra had another opportunity to escape, and he did exactly that. He vanished again and became a wanted criminal. But this time, he was on the run for much longer, 7 months. What he did next will shock you. About 240 kilometers from Tihar jail, in a village called Dausa in Rajasthan, a man arrived claiming to be a holy figure, Sant Dayadas Maharaj. Wearing traditional saintly robes and a short beard, the villagers had never seen him before. He arrived at the Rameshwaram Ashram temple in the village. The temple had no priest, and the community couldn't afford to hire one. Dayadas offered to perform all temple duties for free, no payment, no favors. All he wanted to do was lead prayers and conduct the daily arti. His words and actions made him seem wise and trustworthy. Since he was working voluntarily, the villagers accepted him as the temple priest. Dayadas began performing daily prayers, and over time, the villagers started trusting him completely. People came to him for guidance, for their fortunes, and even for medical remedies. And here's the twist. Can you guess who this Dayadas really was? As time went by, Devendra, now known as Sant Dayadas, became extremely popular. People from nearby villages, including police officers, would come to the temple seeking advice or medical treatment. Some even came just to speak to him. His fame grew so much that sometimes 50, and at times over 100 people, would visit him in a single day. He had even opened a small clinic inside the ashram. But this wasn't free treatment. He charged a minimum of 1,000 Indian rupees per visit. Later, he even started providing medicines imported from Jaipur, which added to his income. Some patients improved, but others died under his care. One man, for example, brought his son hoping for a cure, only to lose him 15 days later. Despite this, his popularity remained unaffected. People were so impressed with him that they sometimes paid more than his usual fee. He was even invited to public events as a guest, sitting alongside local politicians. He had truly become a big deal. Over time, the wealth he accumulated allowed him to live a lavish lifestyle at the ashram. He installed all the facilities of an upper-middle-class household: air conditioning, Wi-Fi, water purifiers, coolers, and even set up CCTV cameras. He also planned to build an old-age home nearby, which he successfully did by early 2025, naming it Sri Balaji Vrid Ashram. The people of Dausa respected Sant Dayadas immensely. They held him in even higher regard than a doctor. His popularity grew so much that villagers from nearby towns began visiting him for guidance. On May 19, 2025, two men came to meet Sant Dayadas, seeking solutions to their problems. As usual, he was seated in the temple, listening and advising visitors. After some conversation, one of the men pulled out a photograph from his pocket and showed it to Dayadas. Upon seeing it, Dayadas' face went pale. It was him, Devendra Sharma. The game was over. Devendra Sharma, disguised as Sant Dayadas, realized he had been exposed. Without resisting, he stood silently, accompanied the men outside, and admitted his true identity. That same day, he was taken away in handcuffs, while the entire village witnessed the shocking scene. For 2 years, a serial killer had been living among them, posing as a saint, treating people, and enjoying a luxurious life funded by the very villagers he deceived. But how did the police finally catch him? For 2 years, Devendra believed that the police had stopped looking for him. On the other hand, they had been tracking his mobile phone 24/7, but his phone remained switched off. Fate intervened when one day his SIM card was recharged, and he unknowingly called his second wife in Mumbai. This single call revealed his location. Undercover officers posed as devotees and observed the ashram for a week. Finally, they arrested him. Ironically, it was his own mistake, reactivating his phone, that led to his capture, even though he had been running from the law. This case is one of the most unique I've ever covered. Devendra didn't just escape. He created new identities, led new lives, and continued criminal activities each time he ran. It almost feels like a movie plot, as if a film director wrote it. For now, Devendra Sharma, aka Dr. Devendra Sharma, aka Sant Dayadas Maharaj, is behind bars. Hopefully, he will never receive parole again, because no one knows what crimes he might commit under a new identity. And with that, this case comes to an end. I'm looking forward to reading your comments on this video, to see if you guessed it correctly. Stay happy, stay healthy, and cherish your loved ones. I'll see you very soon.